Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we've got the Mafex IG-11 action figure. This is a new release that's just shipped in from Ami, which is a Japanese website. And this video is mostly going to be a comparison to the Figuarts IG-11. I've had this for about a year. Really love this figure. It's been on my shelf nonstop since then. It's one of my top 10 figures that I own probably. So it's going to be tough to beat, but we'll see what the Mafex has in store here. It does come with some extra accessories. There's alternate hands. We should start by opening the IG-11 though, just since I know this figure, and I'll kind of show you what the articulation is like on this guy. Not too many accessories. He has an alternate pair of hands, so he has his just kind of open hands and his gun holding hands, as well as this little bag here that fits the Figuarts Grogu, which I unfortunately no longer have. He also has his little thermal detonator, which fits into his chest plate. The weapons on this figure have always been a little tricky to get in his hand. I have in the past used a little bit of black tack on the grip there just to get him to have a nice tight grasp, because you can see they do tend to fall out even in his gun wielding hands, even when the finger is through the trigger. But I do think that this figure looks really great overall. But let's take a look at the Mafex one, and then we're going to compare the articulation and the details on both of them a little bit later in the video. Opening up the Mafex one, we do see that he comes with the stand, which is typical for Mafex figures. He also comes with this little certification product that you can scan using the Mafex app to just determine that you didn't get a knockoff, which, you know, if you order from a reputable company, you don't really have to worry about. He has this little tray with these drinking glasses and this bottle, which, you know, I do love a little bit of world building accessories, but I don't really see myself displaying him with that. He has Grogu and his little bag here. The Figuarts one also came with this, but he didn't come with Grogu, so I guess you're expected to have the other Figuarts version of Grogu, which I don't have, but we'll compare those a little bit later as well. Looking at the figure itself, he does have a little bit more of a warmer tone to him. Like, his head looks a little bit more gold, and he does have a little bit more gold details on his arms and that sort of thing. The Figuarts one feels more like bronzy and beige. The bags that they come with are pretty similar. The one on the left obviously is bigger. That's a Figuarts one because it fits the full body of Grogu. But the one on the right, Grogu is just sculpted in, so you can't really remove him. It's just kind of his upper torso sitting on top of the bag. The weapons are almost identical. The one on the right is a little bit darker, the Mafex one, but otherwise pretty simple, no dry brushing or any detail work on there. And same for the pistols. It's actually pretty crazy how similar these are, considering that they're two different companies making them. These look like they came from the same exact toy line. Let's go ahead and break down the differences in the two figures now. Here they are side by side, doing my best to get them the same distance from the camera so you can kind of compare scale here. I think that one, yeah, that looks a little bit better. Again, you can see the colors here. The one on the left a little bit more bronzy and beige versus the one on the right. This is the IG-88 Black Series figure, which is the same mold as the IG-11. You can see how grossly undersized this is. This really is just not even worth comparing. And of course, we all want to see with the Black Series Mando, so that's him. I do have a custom head and cape on this from OT Customs, but this is how he scales. He's a little bit better scaled to the Mafex, but I do prefer the IG-11 on the left, just sculpturally and color-wise as a figure, so it's a little bit of a tricky choice. I'm still not decided which one of these is going to be going on my shelf. Let's take a little bit of a peek at the articulation here. The Figuarts one, you get a just past 90. Decent articulation on the head, you know, it just kind of swivels, and then almost 90 at the knees. Nothing too impressive here, but he doesn't really get in too crazy poses. Like, he does have his arms straight out in certain parts of the show when he's kind of shooting up those stormtroopers, so the figure does have that articulation, and then decent movement at the thigh here. Little bit of articulation at the waist, but with the leather straps it's a little bit tricky. And then I did pop the headpiece off as soon as I got this figure. It was really thin, and I know that a lot of other people have had that issue, but luckily the head still sits on there perfectly. It just doesn't snap on necessarily, but just sitting on the shelf, it's not an issue. Decent articulation at the wrists here. Unfortunately, he does have issues holding the guns that we addressed before. The Mafex one definitely wins the articulation contest. We get pretty impressive range of motion on the knees. Look at that, almost kicking his own butt, which we know he could do if he had to. And then really amazing articulation at the elbow. I have him on my shelf, and he is quite a big figure, and his arms are so long that it's tricky on my hexagon shelves to get him to fit in an interesting pose with his guns. So I do want to have his arm up in that kind of past 90 position with one of his blasters shooting straight up. The articulation on the other joints, however, is very similar to the Figuarts, but this elbow articulation really sells it. The hand pegs are similar to what we've seen in other Mafex figures. Figuarts has like a little mushroom peg, but Mafex pegs are just flat, which I actually much prefer. They are still pretty secure, but it just makes for a much easier time getting the hands on and off. If you've ever played with a Figuarts figure, you know how much of a pain in the butt it can be to get the hands on sometimes, especially when that mushroom wrist peg just kind of collapses when you're trying to push it into the hand. It's hard to get a good angle where you can get proper force in order to get that onto the hand. Mafex figures include this little U-shaped plastic piece to hold the hands together. It just kind of helps you keep them organized. Definitely not necessary, but just a nice feature to have. I'm gonna go ahead and switch these hands out. That's quite loose actually, so I don't know how much that actually does help. They should all be the same hole size. I'm very curious to see how the gun wielding hands fit the weapons because they are so loose on the Figuarts. These are a little bit softer so you can kind of bend the finger in, but this actually still does feel loose. This might be the wrong weapon for this hand, but let's see. Honestly, that's still pretty loose. It's not falling out, which is good, but let's see how this one fits on this hand now. Yeah, that feels kind of like the Figuarts. It honestly feels pretty loose. Let's see if we have any issue once the pegs are on the hands. Yeah, it's like it just doesn't sit where you want it to. That's really disappointing. But a little bit of black tack should take care of that, so I'm not too worried about that. But let's go ahead and pop these hands off and take a look at some of the other accessories that come with this figure. The tray that he comes with has these two little holes in it, and those connect to these hands. So these are his little tray grabbing hands, and they have these little pegs down the middle, so that just keeps it a little bit more secure so you don't have to worry about it toppling over as much. I'm not sure exactly which way they are supposed to go. I'm gonna go ahead and do this way. And then let's go ahead and get them on the pegs. They're going pretty smooth there. Now it's just about getting him balanced. Not too bad, but we'll see how well he stands once he has the other accessories on the tray. He comes with this little bottle here, and then these little glasses as well. This does look cute, but I don't really think that I will be displaying him like this. You know, he's just too cool of a character to just be carrying a tray. But these cups and glasses would look really cool in a cantina diorama, which I happen to be working on for my Patreon. Let's take another look at the Figuarts versus Mafex and just do a little bit more of a detail comparison here. You can see the head sculpts are pretty similar. The one on the left does feel a little bit more properly colored to me. I don't know if just because I've had it for so long, but it just feels more like the right IG-11 colors. The one on the right to me feels a little bit more like IG-88. Which, you know, maybe with a little bit of a paint job, he can be a good IG-88 replacement because I don't have an IG-88 on my Black Series shelf because the Black Series one is just so bad. These Mafex pegs on the neck are really nice. Like I said, I broke the one on the Figuarts because it was a little mushroom peg and it was just a little bit too weak and it wasn't coming off properly, and I just applied a little bit too much pressure right when I opened the box, which was really heartbreaking. But Grogu fits nicely on here. The head just slides right back on. I have much less of a sense of worrying about damaging anything on this one than I did with the Figuarts. I think I will be displaying the Figuarts one as my permanent display, although this guy on the Mandalorian speeder bike actually looks really great. I'll show you that in a second, but let's look at the Grogu that comes with the Black Series one compared. You can just see how undersized it is and just how tiny and cheap it looks compared to the Mafex one, which, you know, obviously it is cheaper, but I'm curious to see how he fits on the speeder because the Figuarts one is a little bit too big for this speeder. No issues here in terms of articulation and getting him on. His feet kind of fit perfectly on the foot stands there. Ooh, that looks a lot better than I was expecting it to. I've only tried this with the Figuarts one and it is a little bit too big, but this looks perfect. Like, this looks exactly how I picture it in my head from the show. And honestly, maybe I will be displaying both of these on the shelf and have him just on the speeder bike here because that's a pretty awesome moment and it looks so good. That's all for today's video. Thank you guys all for watching. Let me know if you will be picking up either the Mafex or the Figuarts one. I'm curious to see which one you think is best, and let me know if this video helped in your decision in any way or anything you'd like to see differently next time. Please leave a like and comment if you haven't already, subscribe if you have the time, and I will see you all in the next video.